All right, welcome into the Bram and Weinstein Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. Let's go live to Ashburn. Head coach Ron Rivera is speaking live with the media.
Really good for the things that they do and how we wanted to approach it. And then I thought they, for the most part, executed it the way we needed to. You know, Sam got the ball out quickly. A lot of good decisions as far as those things were concerned. It's really good route running. I thought the protection was outstanding. You know, we had a couple of little glitches, and unfortunately we did give up one sack. That was a tough one too, just because of the situation. But for the most part, I thought his decision-making was good. I thought his delivery was where it needed to be. He was close a couple of times on a couple of really nice shots that were downfield. I liked the fact that he chose to take a couple of shots too. That was good. But the ball placement on some of the touchdown passes were outstanding. And, you know, again, his command out there was really good. You know, he checked a couple times, made some good decisions on those as well, and did a really nice job of getting the ball out of his hand on those decisions as well.
I won't ask you about any players or anything specific, but I think one thing that's everybody's fascinated by is, you know, you do have the two hats and how you approach this. You do have all these 9 games left, and there is this moment in time where it's a pretty critical moment. How do you process that for you? Like, how has it changed? Has it changed like your daily schedule or what you're thinking about more and more because the deadline is here?
Like I said, once we get past Tuesday, we'll probably have some answers to those questions for you.
Okay. Then to the game itself and the replay situation, you talked about it a little bit after the game. What we may have asked you at some point during your time here, but what's the process that you guys have in place? You know, who's up in the booth? Who are you talking to?
Well, up in the booth, you know, obviously what we're hoping to get is a look. Okay, we'd love to see the replay and love to see it out there quickly. What you don't want to do is get in a situation where we were in, and that is we didn't get a chance to get a look. If you throw the flag and you're wrong, you lose it. And so we're trying to decide. We know how important having the challenges are. We know how important having the timeouts are out. And when, you know, there's really nothing that's definitive, it's hard to make that decision appropriately.
And just, who's in your ear in that time?
We have people upstairs that are in my ear.
Okay, got it.
Kind of generically, in your kind of experiences, when you're thinking about making a move or a trade, what factors do you look into? Like, what are you balancing? What are you looking at?
Well, as I said, we'll discuss those things once we get past Tuesday.
Okay. You've said this phrase a couple of times. You are what your record says you are.
Absolutely.
Right now you're 3-5. Taking the glass half full approach, what gives you optimism about this team in the coming weeks here? Well,
first of all, I think the play of the quarterback. It's something that we've talked about, and I think when you start seeing the production that he's having, it's now time for us to go out and do the things that we're capable of. And I think we're more than capable. I really do. But, again, we haven't shown it. And that's something that we as coaches have got to make sure we're giving these guys every opportunity to be successful. And then if that's the case, we got to go out and make sure we're executing properly.
If you've had a chance to go back and look at the film with Emmanuel, I know you only had a handful of snaps, but did you see improvement in the technique things that you've talked about? Or
we did for the most part, but the hard part obviously was, you know, there was the touchdown throw. I mean, we have some questions that we'd like to get answered about, you know, the particular play, but, you know, he's working at it, he's getting better, and he's just got to continue to work.
And hypothetically, if you only had 3 of your 4 current starting defensive linemen next weekend, who would step up for that missing 4th piece, hypothetically?
Hypothetically, once we get there, I'll give you an answer.
What do you attribute to having a good game plan going into this week? It seemed like you guys did a lot of things you thought you could do well at the beginning of the season. Why was this week different?
I think because we were able to get out and execute it. I think one of the big things that really stood out was the protections. I thought Tyler did a really nice job of setting the protections. I thought one of the things that really went well, Paul got his opportunity, and he was very stout at the point. He really was. Both he and Tyler, I thought, really held the point very nicely. What that allowed was it allowed for Sam to hitch up and step into the throws. And those, I think, you really see on the velocity of the ball that he threw and the windows he threw the ball into. I mean, they were very well delivered.
And obviously, you're going to change it up by opponent. But do you see what you guys did Sunday as a template for how this offense can succeed moving
absolutely.
forward?
That's what I've always seen. I've always thought that's where we're headed. And a lot of it comes from just, like I told you guys when I was trying to decide where we wanted to go with a coordinator, looking at things that they were doing in Kansas City during their playoff run. And that is what really kind of led me in that direction. And yesterday was a good example of it. We saw it the first time we played Philadelphia. We saw it in moments of other games. But we've got to get consistent there. And again, you've got to play complementary football. You've got to play complementary offense, defense, and special teams in terms of each one of those groups. Defensively, it's got to be complementary in terms of stopping the run and the pass. And the pass rush has to complement each other with the coverage and stuff like that, and so on for offense, defense, and special teams as well. So that's what we're working towards is being consistent and complementary.
Coach, is there any updates or thoughts on Curtis Samuel and his status moving forward?
Just for the most part, he was examined this morning, and the biggest thing they talked about was his foot soreness. They're gonna have him examined further and treat him further, and hopefully it'll subside and settle down a little bit. But yeah, Curtis started off really strong for us yesterday.
And then with Sam later in the game, it looked like passes were getting a little bit less accurate. He got hit in the shoulder earlier in the game, but then also a lot of throws. Were either of those things fatigue or getting hit earlier?
Oh, no, I don't think any of those were fatigue. You go and look, and a couple of them were a little bit right or left. And again, I just think that's part of the throw. Ricky went to go get an MRI, so we'll wait on those results.
With the secondary, you've had miscommunications or blown coverages. I guess is there a common thread? What's going on with those?
No, that more than anything else is just making sure it gets communicated. That one was one that we shouldn't have missed. We really shouldn't have. And again, we just got to make sure we get it out there in plenty of time, which I felt we did. But again, there's a communication that has to be connected. Yeah, that's going to happen. They're going to move their people around and put them in position. I mean, you can't hide people in this league; they'll find you. And when they do, you'd love to have, some sort of double coverage. And again, you've got to take your hat off to, like you said, probably the guy playing the best in the NFL right now as a receiver.
Just curious what you can do at this point in the season, given, some weeks the offense seems like it shows up and has a good game. Defense falters a little bit. Last week, defense showed up pretty well. Offense had a rough day. I mean, what can you do after week 8 to sort of figure out how to streamline and just how to make the entire team
right.
Work together?
With 10 more weeks left to play, we're going to take each week one at a time. I know I've said it and sound like a broken record, but that's the truth of the matter. We'll continue to work and try and get us to play complementary football. I mean, that's the truth. I mean, it's just you continue to grow and work and develop, and, as it goes, we'll see how it goes.
How would you assess how the D-line has played this year?
I think D-line has had its moments. I mean, yesterday we held one of the top rushing teams in the league to only 59 yards. And so that starts up front. We got good pressure on the quarterback. We could have used a little bit more, obviously, especially in certain situations. So, they've definitely have played solid at times, and they've had their moments. And we've just got to be consistent more so than anything else.
I was going to ask you, do you feel like they've played to the level that you had anticipated?
Not consistently enough, and again, you see it, but you've got to see it all the time, and that's really the mark of it when it really comes together, is that it's consistent.
Last one. Is it a rushing coverage thing? Is that a schematic on the line?
But see, that's where it goes back to just being complementary, and again, just understanding certain elements of what's going on and what the situation is, what situational football is. And trying understanding and marrying, what the front and coverage is, and sometimes understanding why those coverages are being called, why those fronts are being called, why those stunts or pressures. I think, again, just having a good feel and understanding for what we're doing really helps.
Last one.
going on to week 8 here, and you have the late bye, right? So it's always a grind from training camp to as you go through this. There's that physical aspect, the bumps and bruises, but the mental aspect. How's this team holding up in terms of the mental fortitude, mental strength? What have you seen from that locker room?
I thought yesterday, they came out with the right mindset. We know them, they know us. It's always been a challenge. It's always been a struggle and a battle. I mean, you could argue that in the last 3 games that we've played against them, we've probably been the one team that's given them a hard time. And so I think that's something to build on. Again, I'm not looking for a moral victory, but I'm looking for something to build off of. And that's the kind of game that, you point to certain things, offensively, defensively, and special teams, and you say, see, that's what we're capable of. I mean, if you point to some of the things that we did defensively, getting the ball, taking the ball away in critical situations, offensively scoring when you had to score. I mean, getting into the red zone and converting, getting goal to goal and converting, that's big. Being over 50% on third down as an offense was big. Special teams wise, we were 4 for 4 on extra points, and we hit a 61-yarder just before the half, 2-minute drive to give ourselves a chance to, go in at halftime with the lead. So there's all these things that you can point to and say, this is what you want, but let's be consistent. That's what we have to get to now.
All right, thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, so that's head coach Ron Rivera. To reiterate, because you didn't hear the very beginning of it, and you heard him say it a couple times, but he told everybody in the room they would not discuss any personnel as they head into the trade deadline, which is literally 24 hours away. There was a trade that occurred. The Giants have sent Leonard Williams to Seattle for a 2nd-round pick next year and a 5th-round pick the year after. So if you want to start market setting a little bit, Leonard Williams, defensive tackle. I don't believe we're trading a defensive tackle, albeit I know there's been some rumors about John Allen, partially because he screamed, "I'm sick of this, a week ago." But if you're looking for defensive line market setting, Leonard Williams going for a 2nd and a 5th is interesting when you talk about Chase Young and Montez Sweat, the 2 that are most likely to be dealt over the next 24 hours if it happens. All right, we'll get into the game next. We'll do the whole trade deadline at 4 o'clock, but let's get into the game next. Brainwash the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. I've never been to a Gorillaz concert. I've heard it's very good, and I heard you get an eclectic group of people who dress up like crazies. Mm-hmm. I would describe that as similar to the crowd who showed up in a lot of green yesterday.
Kelly Green specifically, actually.
Oh, we had 2 guys in front of us in the booth.
That knew you guys were...
They were the most annoying people on the face of the planet. I don't mind interacting with the crowd a little bit. We are up, there's seats right under us.
Yeah.
We open the windows, obviously.
Yep.
I made a mistake.
Uh-oh.
Early in the game. No, well, there were these 2 guys, 2 Eagles fans. Actually, the section where we were, which was a suite level, so, obviously, and I think we were above the club level. So it was actually mostly Commanders fans up there. It was down in the lower bowl where you saw the green. There weren't a ton of them. It was a ton of burgundy. But the guys in the row right in front of us, 2 of them, real drunk, real annoying Eagles fans, like standard, like central casting Eagles fans. Okay,
right.
And they were just kept looking. They knew what we were doing, and they just kept looking back at us. And I'm trying to ignore. I always try to ignore everybody in general. If we score a touchdown and it's a Commanders fan, I'll give them a high five or something like that. But these guys, they were just so annoying the whole time. I just see them. They kept looking. They wanted our attention so bad. And so when it was 14-3.
No.
And I know.
No.
And they got to stop, which I'll get to in a minute. I just looked at them and I went, 14-3. Okay. And then I knew it. I'm like, if they come back, these guys aren't going to leave me alone the whole time.
Correct,
and they didn't. So it was a little bit my fault. But these 2 guys would not stop yesterday, constantly. And I had to just ignore them every time to try to get the message across. I see you. I'm not going to engage with you. Maybe you can't figure this out, but I'm working here, and you don't matter to me right now. Yeah. You're trying to get this across to you, but whatever. So anyway, I had that yesterday. But it was a little my fault.
It absolutely was your fault.
I know. I shouldn't have said anything. The guy at Denver who gave me the double bird. I just didn't even react.
That was on the way out.
Yeah, too. I was like, go ahead.
No, I mean, look, I'll be real.
I wish I should. I don't want to do it because it's on the team bus, but I should show you what we get when we pull into stadiums.
Of course,
it's
it's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
People line up to
Yes.
double bird you.
Yeah, right.
Like pleasant looking women, young children. Like you'd be surprised how unhinged people act the second they see you.
The NFL makes people act in different ways.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I would have. Yeah, you totally brought that on yourself because at no point yesterday did I think they were winning that game.
I thought it might happen.
No, not me.
Going in, I didn't.
You could call me jaded or broken down by this team, by this franchise, really, but they were up 14-3, and I was like, way too much time. That team's seems like they're just warming up, and I just know with this year's team, a 11-point lead is nothing to them right now. So
against a team like that,
yes.
Against next week against New England,
no. Against the entire league.
We haven't had the only team we've had an 11-point lead against was the Falcons, and it held up.
Okay.
Because the Broncos game was a big comeback.
Yeah, sure.
And we led. Did we lead by 10 at some point? I don't remember. Maybe. We weren't up by that much. We were 18 down. So we couldn't
they were
have
up by 8 at least because they had to score the 2-point conversion. So it was at least 8 points. I don't remember.
We were up either
way.
Late. Yeah.
They never led in the Bears game. So I'm just saying.
They never led that.
Against the entire league.
We only have two because they came back against the Cardinals. They came back against the Broncos. The only examples we have are the Falcons and the Eagles, and one lead held up and the other one did not. And I got to tell you, like, for me, the killer was the 4th and 1 call.
Yeah, it was the momentum flip.
At the end of the first half.
100% flip.
Where if they run the ball and don't get it, I guess the same thing happens. But had they gotten a first down, the worst that was going to happen, short of a turnover, was they would have bled the clock down and kicked a field goal or scored another touchdown and been up 21-3. I think they should have been bare minimum up 17-3 at half is what the score should have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what the score should have been. And I don't mind that they went for it. I think they should have. I just don't know how you empty the backfield and throw a pass.
It was maybe the worst play call of the season.
It was off of a half where they were perfect.
Perfect.
It was crazy.
It was the enemy's best game so far.
It was extremely pass heavy again.
It was
extremely.
It was, but they were working on at least folding the run in a little bit there and getting the ball to Robinson if it wasn't a pass play. I forget how many balls he caught, but like it was, and Gibson too was being.
We described this in the booth. I kind of described it with London and Julie basically as this is their run game. It's this quick game, get the ball out, because those are run plays.
Yep.
If you get the ball out that fast, it's their run plays.
Yep.
So that's how they've substituted it. Because I think Eric Bieniemy follows social media and coverage of the team, but maybe he doesn't. Or he is just brazenly does not care what you think. Because I'm going to tell you this stat that I looked up last night because I wanted to see where they are. They have 159 rush attempts this year in 8 games. That's the lowest of any team that has played 8 games. Yeah. So only teams that have had a bye week that have actually lower, and it's not by much, by the way, but the teams that have played 7.
Sure.
The next closest that's played 8 is the Vikings at 165. The next closest after that's 190. That's how far off from balance they are. Sam Howell has 308 pass attempts. They have 159 rush attempts. It's over 2-1. Over.
It's not what Ron wants. Or maybe wants.
They are 65-35 pass.
They want 2-1 the other way.
And of the 159 rush attempts, probably 10 to 15 of them are scrambles. So they weren't rush attempts in the first place. Okay? So they are close to 70-30 pass. Now, yesterday, it's hard to complain about the offense because they scored 31 points. Hal in the first half was amazing.
Yep.
It was called very well. It was all working. Jahan Dotson had a career day. Terry McLaurin could have. Logan Thomas was targeted well. It was working for them. It was totally working for them. So it's hard to complain about it. But I don't know how that is the pathway to success. And considering they've been doing it all year, I'm not surprised they're 3-5.
Yep.
I'll get to the defense in a minute, which I still think is the bigger story of the whole thing.
Oh, it absolutely is. No, it absolutely is. I think anyone that's talking about You can talk.
I just want to point this out because it doesn't seem like, to me, when they said Chris Paul starting and Alex Arma was called up, I went, we're going to run the ball, these guys.
Right.
And then they didn't.
Yeah, right.
And then Sam Howell, not kidding, broke a franchise record for completions in a first half of a game. Not kidding.
Yeah, right.
I wish they would have told me that in the game when I could have said it.
Yeah.
As opposed to after the game, but that's a little, nitpick that I'm going to bring up to the PR department. Like, you might want to text me that when that happens so that I can say it on the air. They didn't. I had to find out through someone else that Joey Sly field goal was the longest in franchise history.
I only saw that today. I only saw that was the case today.
It's another I want to write to the team and go, if you guys know this happened, you should text us on the broadcast so we could say it. We fortunately had a stat guy who looked it up and was like, what's 61? And he goes, oh my God, it's a long in franchise history. I'm like, well, thank you for finding that.
Right.
Anyway, I'll get to the defense in a minute because I do think it's a bigger story. And considering they did score 31 again, and they did perform very well, especially in the first half, it needs to be pointed out. They're a 70-30 pass team.
Yep.
When push came to shove down the stretch, they couldn't complete passes that they needed to make and didn't run the ball.
That's right.
Again.
Exactly. Yep.
In a game that they either led the whole way or trailed at most by 7, they don't run the ball.
Yep. Exactly.
Guys.
It's been the same story for the whole first half. It's every game we're talking about how they don't run. Every single game.
I think I know this head coach. There's no chance on earth that that's what he signed up for.
No
chance.
I can pull the quote up from Mayhew and him when they did their personnel.
They said 60-40 run, and everybody went, nobody does that.
They said 2-1 run.
Yes.
2-1.
70-30, the opposite.
Yeah.
Nobody does it. We were like, what are you, Navy?
Yeah, right. Coach Ken needs a job.
Coach Ken just left.
Yeah.
You got an opening there if that's what you're looking for. If that's what you're into, and I know you like the military, that's going to be your bag, baby. 70-30 run. 70-30 run. A lot of character guys. You're going to love that place.
Right.
Now they're 70-30 pass. They are the most prolific pass team in the NFL.
Yes.
How did this happen? And they're 3-5. So what they're doing is not adding up to what they need it to do.
Right.
How is this sustainable?
It's not. That's the whole point. I mean, luckily yesterday at least, Sam was sacked only what? Once? Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Through 3 quarters, no sacks.
Right, exactly.
I was like, that's great. The offensive line was way better than it's been.
Right, and he took a one shot. I think it was the shot in the first half where he hung in there to sling one up. I forget which one it was.
Yeah, it was a near miss on a deep shot.
Yeah.
He had a.
He hung in there, and
he hung in there and took it and just missed on it. I think it was either Pringle or somebody deep. He had a deep shot. Yeah.
But other than that, I was like, okay, he finally gets a week to just play quarterback and not have to ice his whole body after the game because he's getting sacked 5 times.
Yeah.
By teams that only have 5 sacks on the year.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that was better.
Yeah.
Tyler Larson was an improvement.
Yeah.
Chris Paul was fine. I haven't rewatched the tape. I need to take a look again.
Right.
Offensive line obviously did its job.
Yeah.
Right. Receivers had a wake-up game, albeit seeing Terry drop back-to-back. I know, listen, neither one of them were great throws. Still, I expected him to catch one of them.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
In both must
you could
scenarios.
tell they went right back to it because they were like, oh, he's not going to miss it
must
twice.
Scenarios. It's 2 weeks in a row. In a must scenario, a guy that I trust implicitly dropped a pass.
Yeah, it was brutal. That one.
Jahan in the Giants and Terry back-to-back here. It's just not our year, guys. Like, when I saw that, I'm just like, oh, my God. It's just not our year.
It was insanely bad.
Yeah. When we need it, it just doesn't happen for him. But I want to go back to the 4th and 1 play because that, to me, is what turned it.
It was.
It's 14-3. Like, considering they scored 38 points. They had 3 with under 2 minutes to go in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
So they scored 35 points in a span of 31 minutes of game time.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's Dolphins-esque against the Broncos. It's a lot.
Not to mention the defense also got 2 red zone turnovers. And
right, it could have been 50.
Yes.
It could have been 50.
Exactly.
Yes, because, they had the one was just a missed exchange on a snap.
Correct.
And then Gainwell, the fumble, and the Eagles fans, I know this going in, they do not understand why he's their red zone running back. Like, they're so, that's like their little in the weeds thing. Like, you have to know them to know that, like, they don't, and I agree with them, understand
That's a weird one.
how is he the red zone back for them. Like, it doesn't make, because they've seen this too much, and they're having trouble scoring in the red zone, and they blame him a lot. And then they, we stopped the tush push because they couldn't get a snap right.
Yeah.
So they could have had 50 yesterday.
Right. Yes.
But I do think the momentum turned on this call, which I don't understand it. I don't know why you throw out of empty on a 4th and a half yard. You don't think you can get that with Brian Robinson?
Right.
You called up Alex Armour, so you have a lead blocker.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're signaling you're going to run the ball. Every time they get a situation like that, they can line up and run it down your throat.
Correct. Not to mention, too.
This is football, guys. Like, line up. You can't win for a half yard. Well, then that's on you.
Well, and also,
you could sneak it with Hal and probably get a half yard.
I'd make the argument, too. Every time Chris Rodriguez has touched the ball, he runs violently and straight ahead.
Yeah, he didn't get a carry yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think.
I'm not even sure he got on the field.
I think Arma got a carry.
Arma got something.
Or a
they
pass
threw
attempt.
a pass to him.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, Rodriguez didn't get on the field yesterday.
Which, I mean, pick your poison.
I'm not going to go crazy about that.
No,
like,
the
offense scored a lot of points.
I think it was last week. Michael Phillips pointed out every time Rodriguez goes in the game, they are running the ball with him. So there might have been a tell at that point.
Well, you know what? Every time they step up to do that tush push, they don't throw out of it.
Right.
I dare you to. You can't stop it. That used to be the old Redskins mantra of when they had the Hogs out there. You know what we're going to do. You just can't stop us.
That's right.
There's something exhilarating about that. And those guys, boy, salt in the wounds doing that tush push look and then running for a touchdown on you.
Yep. And the red zone.
That was Chiefs-esque.
Yeah, that was
we're toying with you.
That was like, oh, yeah, Eagles are
Watch
back.
this.
Eagles are back is pretty much what my mindset was there.
You know what the weird part was? I wish I said it because I knew something was off with it. The way they lined up, I went, that doesn't look right.
Yep.
They typically get closer, and there was a little bit of separation, and I went, uh-oh. It was like alarm bell.
Yeah,
this isn't right.
Yeah,
like, this isn't right. And then they did it. I'm like, oh, it was one of those. I wish I said this doesn't look right on the air. Anyway, so the 4th and 1 play was a killer. This is after a first half where defensively they were very good, and their offense ran to perfection. And I'm still beefed about how they just don't run the ball, but it's hard to argue when you're up by 2 scores in the first half and it's working. So I don't have a problem with it. Like I'm not going to sit there and argue about it. I think in the end, when you lose, I think it's worth looking back at this and going, is this who you are? And why is this who you are? But okay, whatever. That call was a killer.
It was garbage.
Absolute killer.
It was so bad.
I'll give them credit. They turned around and walked down the field and got themselves into field goal range and unfortunately got a penalty, but then made it anyway. So good on Joey Sly for making a big-time field goal. And then the second half, their defense got just torched.
Yes. Right.
Totally.
What else is new?
In London, you should have seen the look on his face. I thought he was going to jump out of the booth because he's like, I can't tell you how many drives he's like, I'm waiting for our front four to start acting like our front four.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And Rivera was just asked about this in the press conference, and he said they're playing inconsistently. I'll go a step further than that. They're not anywhere near the potential that we expect out of that group.
Yeah.
They are this team. This team will go as that group goes. We have 2 of them that are about to get big time contracts and 2 that already got them. They're all first round picks. And collectively, I'm not sure they've played more than one good half collectively together. And there are games earlier this year where I didn't even call John Allen's name.
Yep.
Yesterday, he had more pressures. He was a little more active, but did he have a tackle? I'm not even sure he had it. Maybe one.
He had one where he blew one of the plays up. He went parallel to the line. That was a great, finally he showed up on film where I was like, oh, good job, John. Like, we've been waiting for that all year. Other than that, though, I don't really remember
He and Payne
much.
were very good the first 2 games. And then after that, they were kind of disappearing acts. And I kept watching going, Payne's getting double teamed so much, I'm just not going to yell at him about it because what's he supposed to do? But Allen is the one where I'm like, where you been, man?
Yeah, right.
Like, you're our all-pro. Like, you're our captain. You're our all-pro. I see you giving these pregame speeches. Where you been? Mm-hmm. And then Montez, I think we all have landed exactly where he is. He is a really, really good player who's never going to be a great one.
Yep.
But he's a really, really good player. And with Chase, yesterday, in what might have been his last game here against the Eagles. Not that I'm saying it's going to be, but might be. He didn't know.
There's a chance. Yeah, there's a chance.
One tackle.
Yeah, it wasn't good yesterday.
One tackle, never came close to a sack. Did have a few pressures, what they're calling pressures, but I don't recall him flushing out Hurts all that often.
Right.
Nothing that looked dangerous.
Yep.
Listen, this is our team. We're 3-5 because of them. We're 3-5 because our defense is the worst scoring defense in the league.
And this is what I was getting at.
Seriously, I can't even believe I'm saying that, but they are.
It's what I was getting at last week, though, when you were saying who would you trade, and I said both of them, because at this point I'm sick of hinging everything on this defensive line. And then when they're not good, everything falls apart.
When you're 3-5 and you have a bottom 5 in yards allowed, and they are now 31st in scoring defense, they are 1/10 of a point better than the team that's worse than them. And a team that gave up 70 earlier this year has a better scoring defense than they do.
Right.
This is the part of the season you would never have gotten me to believe back in the summer.
Sure.
I knew this was a tinderbox. I knew it was a mistake putting all these guys out there all on expiring contracts, because if it goes well, it's going to be gangbusters. And if it goes wrong, you get this.
Correct.
You get this. And then, you want to excuse the offense for growing pains because young quarterback, new line, new coordinator. I'll hear it.
Sure.
You made your bed because you're the one that brought in those linemen, one of which has already been benched, right? But that's you.
Yep.
You chose the young quarterback, so that's you. And with the coordinator, I was excited about him too. All right. So but I'll hear out. It's going to take a little time. And I didn't know we were going to be 70-30 pass. In fact, I don't think they knew they were going to be 70-30, which is the weird part about it. Because if we asked Bieniemy preseason, do you think you're going to be 70-30 pass? I think he would have laughed at us.
Yeah. Right.
But that's what we are.
Right.
And actually, most of the games we've been in, the scores have been relatively close. The Bears one's the only one that really got out of hand, that ever really got out of hand, where you should throw the ball a ton to try to get back in it. All the other ones, we're down to the Giants by 2 scores.
Right.
We led the Eagles the whole way. We led the Falcons basically the whole way. First Eagles game was back and forth. The Bills game was not a blowout to the fourth quarter. It was it was a 2-score game the whole time. Their offense wouldn't do anything, but it was a 2-score game the whole time.
Yeah.
Broncos game, they were down big, but they were back in it quickly. Cardinals game was close the whole way. We're 70-30 pass. How's that even possible?
Right.
I wouldn't believe. I'll hear out those excuses. But year 4 under this system with a defensive head coach and a defensive coordinator who've been here the whole time, why is this happening? The accountability needs to come on that side. How in the world is this team that bad on that side of the ball?
Well,
Explain it to me.
Not only that, it's not like they haven't invested. It's like the only thing they're investing in. They drafted Jahan in the first round, but other than that, they've spent on the defensive line. They have spent first-round picks. They spent the first-round pick on Davis, on Forbes, which we haven't even touched on yet. They got a hit in Curl. They got lucky to fill a position out late in the draft when their first draft. It's inexcusable how much they've invested on the defense and the pieces that are there. How do they not just show up some weeks and stop teams? That's what I don't understand.
They were very good in the first half until that 4th and 1 play.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the Eagles are hit the gas.
But then why did they
scored in 3 plays? They scored so fast. We were able to get the ball back and move it down the field.
Counterpoint too, though, to that. Why did you suck against the Giants in the first half so badly?
We don't know. Nobody knows.
You cleaned it up in the second half.
Nobody knows. What happened against the Bears?
Why is this happening?
What was that?
The Bears. As the season goes on, the Bears game is going to be truly the nail in the coffin.
Of course.
I don't think anyone's gotten over it.
I knew it that night.
Yeah, we talked about it.
I was worried.
It's just getting worse with age. It's getting worse with age. That's the problem.
I was worried after the Bills because of what was being said in the locker room. Because I'm all right, the score is ugly, whatever, but you're 2-1 and you lost to a really good team.
Trying to talk everyone off the ledge.
Get on, right? Well, it's just get over it, dude. You're 2-1. You lost to a really good team, and move on. Who cares, right? Move on. And then they went and played the Eagles, and I'm sucks they lost, but they could have won. And I'm so I feel good about everything. That Bears game, that's it.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it.
That was the dagger.
The whole thing. Yes, I was at this point, I went, please God, don't spiral. Please God, don't spiral. Please, because all the things we're talking about right now, they were all there.
Yes.
They were sitting on the table.
Yeah.
It's a buffet. It's a buffet of things I don't want to eat.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And I'm Thank God we won that Falcons game. I walked out of there going, woo! Oh, boy. Then we went up to the Giants, and I'm like, if we could just pull this off, we may spiral, but at least it'll happen later. That's all. I'm just delay. Nope. We had to go up there and lay a turd in the first half against them.
Which lost them the game.
Oh, my God. It's so hard to figure. And the defense to me is, I don't get it, man. Like, well, I really do. I mean, I hate putting it all on the front four, but you know what? That's your money, guys. Like, they need to control games, and they're not.
Correct.
They're not controlling games.
It is also...
Or not for any length of time. Like, we did great in the second half against the Giants. Tell me about the first half.
Correct.
Explain 254 to a team with no starting offensive lineman and their backup quarterback.
Yep.
How did that even happen? Explain that to me.
It feels like you're on like a cartoon canoe where the holes just keep getting poked through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they go to plug one up. And when they plug one up, two more pop up.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute. I already fixed that this time around. Nope. And you go to plug that one up. And then two more pop up. You're like, guys, why is this all going wrong? AKA, this is who they are. I mean, this is who they are. 8 games in, we know who they are at this point.
Yes. And I think it does feel everyone's kind of pulling their hair out.
Oh,
you can just tell by the way everyone's talking. But that's why I said the Bills game is what shook me. When I heard McLaurin, who's very steady, go, we got to figure out which kind of team we're going to be. And I'm like, you're 2-1.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, you guys are fine. And then he's like, well, we might not be. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I'm like, here we go. And here we are 6 weeks later. And this was after he said that, because, I listen very closely to what everybody says. And I went, oh, no.
Well, that
like,
game
the foundation's messed up. Like, now they're playing the Eagles. They're probably going to lose, They better win that Bears game. And I remember when the season came out and everyone goes, that Bears game's going to be winning. And I went, you know what I don't like about it is that it's a short week after an Eagles game, because the Eagles game is going to be hard-nosed, emotional, win or lose. Like, I already know what it's going to be. They're going to turn around and play 3 days later. I hope they win. And I hope they win 12-7 again. I don't care how they do it. Nope. You heard Rivera. I don't know if you heard him yesterday. He owned that Bears game. He was the one that owned it.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Because they were, they just asked him about what's going on here. And he said, that's on me. He said, I didn't get them ready, turn them around quickly enough to play that game. That one's on me. The other stuff, he's, there's a lot of excuses.
Yeah, I was going to say.
A lot of things are happening.
A lot going on there.
There's a lot going on. That's the problem. You can't pinpoint anything.
Well,
it's always something. That's what it is. You can't pinpoint anything.
But off your McLaurin point, and I keep pointing to this one too, and I'll just keep it to, field things, not send me my ring type things. But the other one was when, after the Buffalo game, when they were asking about Allen, and he said, oh, yeah, I think he got in their heads a little bit. And it was like, excuse me?
What do you mean?
A month into the season, a quarterback's getting into the defense's head? What? What's going on?
Very frustrating. As you might imagine, it's all very frustrating. And this will also go back to, and I'll say this, about both sides of the ball now, but I've said it for a while for the offense. When I point out their 70-30 pass, they have the fewest rush attempts of any team that has played 8 games, and by a lot, right? By a lot, with one notable exception, Minnesota, who doesn't have a running game.
Right.
We supposedly do.
Supposedly.
Like, they got rid of Dalvin Cook, and it's turned out Madison's average, and Cam Akers is whatever, their backup. We have a guy that we think is a number 1 running back. We don't feed him.
Yeah, right.
And I know that in a pinch, Gibson could be that for you if he had to, but we don't give him the ball. He has 3 carries. He's had 3 carries for the last 6 weeks. Like, he just doesn't even
catches the ball great, though.
Yes, he does.
Which they're finally doing.
We just don't run the ball, even though I think we're more equipped to do it. But we just don't do it.
Right.
So I'll go back to what I've been saying for a few weeks. What are we good at? I don't think they can name that on either side of the ball right now. And there are periods of time in the game where we look pretty good because nobody wants to hear this. We have a good roster.
Right. Yep.
We don't have the Cardinals roster. Mm-hmm. We have a better roster than them. We have a competitive roster. It's why we're in all these games. But I don't think we know what we're good at. And I'll hear it out on offense that we can't figure out what we're good at yet because we're experimenting for all the reasons named before. But the defense has no excuse.
Correct.
You guys have been in this for 4 years. We know who our stars are. We should be dominant, controlling the line of scrimmage. Yesterday should be a test of wills against one of the best offensive lines. It wasn't. Jalen Hurts was barely pressured yesterday. And when he's not pressured, we put our first-round pick, for some reason, on A.J. Brown, the guy who got so into his head that we had to bench him 2 weeks later.
Forbes played like 7 snaps yesterday, too.
Unless
somehow that happened.
And there wasn't an injury reason. It wasn't like Kendall was hurt, or it wasn't like Danny got hurt.
Correct.
If one of them got hurt and they're like, listen, we had to put him in, guy got, that's not what happened. They just decided, let's get his feet wet, and boy, did the Eagles find him fast. Real fast.
I overestimated. 5 snaps is what Forbes played yesterday.
And he gave up a touchdown.
He was on him multiple times.
Yeah. They found him fast. And I'll go back to what I said. A.J. Brown might be the MVP of the league.
Oh,
this
yeah,
year.
no, I agree.
He's so good.
That catch.
He's so good.
The catch at the pylon was insane.
The other touchdown was crazy, too, actually. He just was like, give me that.
Yep.
He needed one of those.
Yep.
He's a monster. Titans. Hate you. Well, what's next, guys? Pats?
Sure, Belichick has nothing schemed up for this team.
I can't believe it. Oh, man.
Pat's got to be 3-point favorites, right?
I think it was 1. They're not very good either. I don't know if you've noticed.
Oh, I know.
I don't know if you've noticed, but they're not very good.
Oh, I know. But they've
They have
actually
a worse record than us.
They've started scoring some points lately, though, which worries me.
Lately, 17 wasn't exactly like
Sorry.
gangbusters.
What did the Giants score?
Hey, what?
14.
Yes.
That was enough.
That was enough. Well, but we scored 31 yesterday, guy. So, revise your...
every
don't know
time.
week.
No one plays. It's not
I don't know what I'm
complimentary
getting.
football.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm getting.
You're right.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm good at on either side of the ball. I thought on defense we would know what we're good at. We're either a good pass defense, a good rush defense, maybe really kind of good at both. I don't know. I don't know. Have that kind of standard considering you were 3rd in the league a year ago?
It is 3.
3 now?
Yeah.
Okay. Revisit all the trade deadline stuff, where we think we are, what's going to happen over the next 24 hours at 4 o'clock. Brainwash the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Let's talk about the Terps for a minute before I do.
Speaking of teams underachieving.
I knew it. I felt it. I could feel it. That's
I knew
why
it before you knew it,
I
though.
did a whole thing last week where I go, it's Chicago that's going to ruin us all. The Bears ruined the Commanders, and now Illinois and Northwestern ruined the Terps.
I knew it. When you were counting those dubs 5-6 weeks ago, and I was going.
Normally, when you come back with the most experienced quarterback in the country, it typically means you win more than you lose. And I didn't expect them to beat Ohio State, but I did expect them to win homecoming against Illinois. Or, I don't know, the pervert team last week that they couldn't beat.
And as I've said to you, with Maryland, there are no gimmies with them. Ever. Ever.
Oh, I wonder, is there going to be any scrutiny on Loxley now?
There already is. It was all over the place over the weekend.
Well, but he finally came out and said this is the year that we need to turn the corner.
Uh-huh.
And my bar for that was, if you beat one of those really good teams, great. But I'm not going to hold you to that.
Why? He's the one saying it.
But I want you to beat all the other teams to say you're there. You're not even doing that.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
So they're going to lose at least 2 more because they're playing Penn State and Michigan. So they're going to lose at least 2 more.
That's right.
Oh, God. Who from Michigan was at that game taping your signals, Locks?
Oh, God, stop it. They don't need to.
No, they don't. They didn't bother.
They don't need to.
They didn't bother. We can talk about the Commanders a bit about the decision making, but I've been saying this for a while with the Terps. They're not buttoned up.
Correct.
Did you know they did this? Of course, I watched. They did this again.
Why?
They used their final timeout with 4 minutes on the clock the other day. And I went, it takes every part of me not to tweet. Why would you do that?
It's malpractice.
You're not
in today's
down
day and age.
21.
Yes, right.
What? Where you're like, we have to salvage
Right.
30 seconds to have any miracle shot. No, this is the second time they did it against Illinois too, where they used a timeout way too early, completely unnecessarily too early. 2 weeks ago when they did it against Illinois, it burned them because when they did score, they left that team too much time on the other side.
Right.
This one just made no sense. They were down a score, and they used their final timeout with 4 minutes left on the clock. You don't get them back.
Not only that, they're very valuable. Don't know if you've heard.
Yeah. All right, let's do that. Georgia beat Florida. Georgia beat Florida 43-20. So as you know, Georgia's back. I guess they never went
Georgia's
anywhere.
back. Yeah, sure. After a hiatus.
We had a boring game between Ohio State and Wisconsin that was won by the Buckeyes in Madison, so they remain undefeated. So we're streaming towards what would be their second undefeated matchup because Michigan, I think, will be undefeated, even though the haters are trying to make Jim Harbaugh's life hellacious right now. Florida State was an easy winner, 41-16. They're still undefeated. Washington had a tougher time with Stanford than they probably assumed they would, but won 42-33, and they are still undefeated. Upset of the day is Kansas, who moved to 6-2, knocks off Oklahoma 38-33. I saw some crazy stat where, like, against ranked teams trailing in the fourth quarter, they were like 105-1 or something like that and won.
Wow.
And they beat Oklahoma, who that was 2 weeks in a row, though. Oklahoma was right on the edge, and they lost that one. Texas, of course, is back, beat BYU 35-6. Same score, Oregon over Utah. I still think Oregon's got a real shot to make the playoff. They're going to need Washington to lose along the way because they lost to them, but I think they got a real shot to make the playoff this year, so we'll see. Penn State had a hard time with Indiana, but did get a win at home 33-24. Called this upset. Arizona knocked off Oregon State. I mean, I don't know why I'm even touting, like, not that I know anything about it and, like, looking at scores. 27-24, they won. Oh, that Lane Kiffin, he's a whippersnapper knocking off Vanderbilt 33-7. Notre Dame wins 58-7 over Pitt. North Carolina has now lost back-to-back games to unranked teams. They lost to North Carolina, lost to Georgia Tech 46-42. Louisville shut out Duke 23-0. Oh, that Riley Leonard's draft stock just went down, didn't it now? Air Force over Colorado State, don't care. Tennessee beat Kentucky 33-27. Tulane over Rice, don't care. UCLA beat Colorado. There was an utterly ridiculous penalty in that game where Deion's son was thrown out for targeting, and all he did was tackle somebody. It was crazy.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Crazy, terrible call. And they said their jewelry was stolen out of their locker room. Have you seen that?
Whoa.
Caleb Williams had a big day, but USC won 50-49. They ain't going nowhere with that defense.
I think
how?
USC's head coach is
Lincoln Riley.
Lincoln Riley. I think it was our old friend Tim Murray, who I guess he's been paying attention to this the last couple of weeks, that despite what's happening with them, Lincoln Riley in his presser is like, yeah, but our defense has been really good, so we have that to hang our hat on. So he's like, what are you going to say now?
Yeah.
Old Link?
49 to 3-5 Cal.
Yes, right.
And then game of the day, JMU over ODU, 30-27. That included a combined 30-point third quarter. Whoop! There it is.
Not a hot take. The two best football programs in the state of Virginia.
Those two.
Those two.
It's not a hot take. They are.
Yeah.
James Madison would beat UVA or Virginia Tech, and
yes,
you know it.
Right now, yes.
Absolutely. ODU beat Virginia Tech last year.
Correct, yes.
Sorry, guys, just the truth. Who knows? Maybe that Beamer guy is going to be available again.
I don't know if I want him anymore.
Dadgummit, I just broke my other foot kicking stuff.
I don't know if I want that dude anymore.
We're 2-6.
That dude flipped a corner that I didn't see coming.
It's a tough place to be. One quick note from college basketball, because Rick Pitino's back with St. John's. They played an exhibition game and lost to a D2 team.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I always enjoy that. They lost to D2 Pace.
That was a good one.
Pace is one of those that's like an online degree school. So I don't even know. I don't even know I don't know how they have a basketball
They get to
team.
recruit from everywhere?
Yeah. Or they're ringers. They're like guys just playing pickup games that they found at the Y.
Fly their team into every game.
Yeah. There might be some guy who's 38 years old who's having a career change playing against St. John's this week. But I thought that was good.
Dude went crazy.
Losing to D2 Pace. Thought that was pretty good.
That's not great, Bob.
Not great at all.
That's not good at all.
All right, we will talk about the trade deadline, which is tomorrow, and where everything stands with all the Commanders that are up in the air.